going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Cody and Derek, back for another one, guys, right before the NFL draft. And there was a report coming out. This was according to Dov Kleiman, and he was actually referencing at NFL Draft Scout Matt Miller. This is what he had said. An NFL general manager told ESPN there's no one worth trading up for. When he was asked about trading up for the second or third overall picks, which currently are the Houston Texans and Arizona Cardinals. Miller added that while the Texans and Cardinals might want to trade down from their top picks, reportedly there's no NFL team looking to trade up with them. And that was kind of the big question that we had, Derek, was like, could we see a scenario where both these teams could potentially trade out if they're not taking quarterbacks and try to move back and accumulate more picks? Well, and obviously we don't know 100% if this is true or not true. This is the opinion of one, person. But I think it's just an interesting conversation, an interesting scenario. And honestly, what I think would be a dream scenario for Indianapolis is if Houston and Arizona both don't take quarterbacks and they both – or if they take, if Houston goes and takes a Will Levis, for example, and they don't trade down from those picks, then the Colts get their pick of really whoever they want outside of potentially Bryce Young and potentially you would think one of the other quarterbacks. What are your overall thoughts on this kind of report that came out and how that could potentially be a really good thing for the Colts?
Well, I do want to reference with the fact that it is obviously Dov Kleiman. So, take with it as you wish. He was the one guy that, kind of led the whole charge on the, CJ Stroud tested like so bad that it's laughable sort of thing on his S2 score. He's full of a lot of bad reports, but of course, that was coming from somebody's report who, has no say in any kind of NFL mocks or anything. But at the end of the day, it's kind of important that you talk about the option of that. Let's just forget who reported it, but it's something that, we kind of discuss, like, do the Texans and the Cardinals trade out of those picks? And is it a question mark of does somebody actually want to move up? And I don't think that there's anyone in the front end who would want to trade up to 2 or 3 to go and get someone when they have those options. Seattle, I don't see doing it unless they're going for a quarterback, because why would you give away one of those first, if not more, to go and get somebody else who you could probably still get at 5 anyway? The Falcons won't do it. The Raiders will only trade up if there's a quarterback involved, because they can get defense either way. So it's like, there's not a defensive player in this draft that makes you think this is a generational player. We have to go and get him at all costs, especially when you know that there's the possibility they could fall. There's the possibility that Houston might take one, or that Arizona would trade out, and that could be a solution. There's other teams that could fall for, and especially with, there's other players like Tyree Wilson, Miles Murphy, all these corners in the first round that could go, right? So there's a ton of defensive talent that you don't have to worry about jumping somebody else to go and get someone, unless you're like Chicago, who acquired all those extra picks from Carolina, and they're like, yeah, we want to go and get that guy because we now have the ammo to do that. But when it comes to the report of that being the case, I mean, as you said, that'd be dream scenario for the Indianapolis Colts, because if Carolina takes the player that Houston wants and they don't want to get a quarterback after that because they deem him as the only reliable option, then they go defense, and then the Cardinals are not taking quarterback. So it would be a dream scenario for the Colts, because then you have that option of Will Levis, CJ Stroud, or Anthony Richardson, whichever guy you want. He's there. You don't have to trade anybody for him, and you can do all of that. So it would be a dream scenario for them to be able to be in that situation. And I mean, it kind of makes sense in a way, Cody, because we've seen, like, what was the report? We had over half a dozen teams call the Arizona Cardinals looking to acquire that number 3 pick. and it hasn't happened yet. So clearly nothing's going to happen until maybe tomorrow when that draft actually comes up, if it happens at all. I mean, we saw the first overall pick get traded earlier because somebody threw out a great offer and Chicago was going to take it. But obviously Houston hasn't heard anything worth it, and Arizona hasn't heard anything worth it. Maybe teams are trying to trade up to acquire it, but are not willing to go to the extra mile to go and get somebody because they just don't think it's worth it.
Which even makes like what Chicago was able to pull off look even more great for them, because, if no teams are willing to offer a whole lot, Chicago got a crap ton for the number 1 overall pick. But yeah, it's kind of crazy that nobody's really shown a lot of interest from what, we've had a report that there's been around 6 teams, but how legit were those teams interested? They could just be seen, but at the end of the day, I do wonder how much of that is they just throw a couple names that maybe asked, okay, what are you looking for? And then it's out of their price range, right? You just don't know. But I obviously feel like it'll be a really good situation for the Colts, because regardless, I feel like they're going to get at minimum 2 quarterback options to pick from, whether that is CJ Stroud, Will Levis, or Anthony Richardson, in whatever order you would like to put them in. The Colts have an opportunity, right? And I think that's great. So I just wanted to kind of touch on this report. Obviously, like you said, with Dov, it's kind of you never know, but Matt Miller is a guy that I trust a lot more, I would say, as far as that goes.
Yeah, probably a little bit more. He's a little more intertwined with the NFL community.
Yeah. And
but
so that would be perfect, because the Colts wouldn't have to give up anything. They could just get their quarterback a choice. And at the end of the day, Derek, I mean, we've been saying the Colts shouldn't stay at 4, but they might have proved us wrong, and they might prove that they're the wiser for sitting there and just waiting it out and not panicking, not trying to, jump all these other teams. It might end up paying off at the end.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It kind of is one of those situations, right? How many of us were claiming the Colts had to trade up, go and get that guy, right? So it's kind of one of those situations where, if indeed it is the case that they end up getting the pick of the ladder when it comes to, CJ, Anthony Richardson, or Will Levis, then obviously it comes back and it looks really bad on us fans who are saying that they should have traded up, when clearly, the Ballard approach of let's wait and kind of see what happens sort of things. Because now you're hearing the reports that Houston's probably not sold on any of these quarterbacks besides Bryce Young. Clearly the Cardinals are not really in a huge worry to want to trade that pick, sort of situation. So maybe it works out, man. Maybe it does. I really hope that that's not. I really hope that that's the case, because regardless of, because I feel like in the end too, we've been talking about this quarterback situation the whole time, Cody. Talking about how if Indy doesn't move from 4 to up a little more, they may just get stuck with the 4th best quarterback, right? They won't really have a choice. But if they have that choice of it being number 4, and it somehow, some way they have 3 quarterbacks to work with, whichever one they chose clearly shows you where they wanted to go in the first place. That goes to show you they may have wanted Will Levis because he did better with his testing scores than CJ Stroud. Maybe they wanted CJ Stroud because they just don't think he's going to be as much of a project going forward as these other 2 guys, and they think CJ Stroud has the higher ceiling. It's kind of one of those situations. Or if there's Anthony Richardson involved in that vibe, it would just be nice, because then I don't feel like the team is getting stuck with an option, right? Feels more like, okay, so they chose this guy when they had others available, then that clearly shows you they valued this guy over the rest of them. So it'll be interesting to see.
And again, we'll see if a trade does indeed happen on draft night. I do feel like that's when, that this will go down, if it does go down at all. And I think maybe Indy's kind of been in a way where, they've been talking to Arizona a little bit about potentially trading up, and really depends what happens and how the draft board falls, right? I mean, if Arizona really just feels like, if they get the sense that Arizona's like, nah, you're going to stay put, then they don't have to, right? They don't have to. But I think Indy's kind of, putting themselves in a position that if there are some teams that all of a sudden start going crazy about it, like Indy at least has an offer there for Arizona if they indeed would want to take it. So it'll be interesting nonetheless to see how that does play out. But just wanted to talk about this because I think it is a very interesting scenario that we would all love to see as Colts fans, and it would be like the perfect thing to play out overall. And I just think it'd be a really good potential option here for Indy. So let us know, guys, your thoughts here on this scenario for the Colts if Carolina picks a quarterback and then, maybe Houston and Arizona stay put and pick. Maybe one of them picks a quarterback. Maybe neither of them do pick a quarterback. So let us know your thoughts overall. That'll do it for this one, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate all your guys' support. We are going to be live tomorrow night starting the first round of the NFL draft, and we're going to get some answers on some of these potential scenarios and see what actually happens. So very excited for that. But thanks, guys, for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And as always, guys, go Colts.